My name is Lorraine Matthews, and I'm 64 years old. I never thought the moment that would break me would happen under the harsh fluorescent lights of a bargain grocery store, staring at a conveyor belt lined with canned beans, generic cereal, and my blood pressure medication. I was just trying to pay for a few basics, nothing fancy. But when I slid my debit card into the reader, the screen flashed red, declined. I felt a strange heat crawl up my neck. I tried again, telling myself it had to be a glitch. The machine beeped, louder this time, like it wanted everyone in line to hear my humiliation. The cashier avoided my eyes. A man behind me sighed in that impatient way that makes you feel smaller than you already do. I whispered that I might need to put some things back, my hands trembling as I pushed aside the very items I needed most. I didn't understand. I had been careful with every dollar since retiring. There was no reason my card shouldn't work. I walked out of the store with a plastic bag that held half of what I needed and a shame I couldn't shake off. The cold air hit me hard, but not as hard as the thought repeating in my mind. Something was wrong. Deeply, frighteningly wrong. When I got home, I opened my laptop, typed in the login information I'd used for years, and waited. The screen blinked. Then a message appeared I had never seen before. Access denied. Credentials invalid. My heart dropped. I tried again and again. Nothing. A text buzzed on my phone, and when I saw my son Derek's name, a chill ran through me. His message was short, almost casual. "Mom, I changed the settings. From now on, I'll handle the account. It's safer this way." Safer for who? In that moment, a suspicion I didn't want to believe began to grow, heavy and sharp. But Derek had no idea what I would do next, or what he would see the next time he drove past my building. When I set my grocery bag down on the kitchen counter, the quiet in my apartment felt heavier than usual. It settled into the walls, into my chest, into the space behind my ribs where worry had been growing all morning. I kept trying my bank login, typing slower each time, as if being gentle with the keys might change the outcome. It didn't. The screen kept throwing the same cold message at me, the one that made my stomach clench. Access denied. I stared at the words until they blurred. For a second, I wondered if I had somehow forgotten my own password, but I had used the same combination for years. I knew it the way you know the rhythm of your own heartbeat. This wasn't forgetfulness. This was something else. And I already knew who had the power to do it. I picked up my phone and called Derek. It rang twice before going to voicemail. His recorded voice, cheerful from years ago, played in my ear. "Leave a message. I'll call you back." I hung up without speaking. I tried again 15 minutes later. Same result. I walked to the refrigerator, opened it, and stared at the barren shelves as though they might magically refill. A carton of eggs, a half-empty jar of peanut butter, a wrinkled apple I kept meaning to throw out. I'd been stretching meals to make my pension last. I thought I had been managing well enough. Clearly, I was wrong. I sat at the kitchen table and let my mind wander back to last spring, when Derek first suggested merging my accounts with his, just to make things easier. He told me that scams targeting the elderly were getting worse, and he didn't want me to fall for something stupid. I'd laughed it off at the time, teasing him that I was old, not helpless. But he'd been insistent, almost tense. He'd walked me into the bank, guided me through signatures and authorizations with a steady hand on my back. I remember feeling oddly grateful. It had been so long since he'd shown that kind of attention. Now I wondered if that had been the first step in something I didn't want to see clearly. My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. "Busy. I'll call later." No explanation, no reassurance, not even a question about why I had called twice. I stared at the message, waiting for anger to rise, but what I felt instead was a slow, sinking disappointment. The kind that doesn't burn, it numbs. I stood up and pulled open the drawer where I kept my bills and receipts. I flipped through them, searching for something, anything, that might explain why my card had failed. The electric bill was due in a few days. My prescription refill was coming up. I had planned to buy a small space heater before winter arrived. All of it required money I suddenly couldn't access. A light knock sounded on my door. I startled, wiping at my eyes before opening it. Connie stood there, wrapped in her denim jacket, holding a paper bag. "I baked too much cornbread," she said, though the look in her eyes told me she knew something was off. "Thought you might want some." I stepped aside to let her in. She set the bag on the counter and turned to face me with that steady presence I'd always admired in her. She didn't push. She didn't pry. She just waited. And I fell apart. The story spilled out of me in pieces. The grocery store, the declined card, the login failure, the text from Derek. With every detail, Connie's expression tightened, not with judgment, but with concern. "Lorraine," she said softly, "this isn't normal." I shook my head. "He's my son. He wouldn't just take things away from me." "Maybe he doesn't think that's what he's doing," she said gently, "but that doesn't make this right." Her words struck deep. I had been so busy trying to make sense of Derek's behavior that I hadn't allowed myself to call it what it was. Fear disguised as confusion, hurt disguised as excuses. Connie reached into her purse and pulled out a folded 20, then another. She set them on the table. "Take this. Just for now." "I can't," I whispered. "You can," she replied. "It's a loan. Pay me back whenever. I'm not letting you go without food." My throat tightened. I picked up the bills slowly, the paper soft from her wallet. "Thank you," I said, voice barely audible. She rested a hand on my shoulder. "There are places that can help. You know, the church pantry. And there's a flyer at the community board about a legal clinic for seniors. Just keep it in mind." After she left, I sat alone again, her words echoing in the quiet. A legal clinic. A pantry. Resources meant for people who had no other options. Was that who I had become? I didn't want to believe it. But the truth was undeniable. I had no access to my own money. I had a refrigerator that looked like I hadn't gone shopping in weeks, and my son, the person I trusted most, hadn't even asked if I was okay. I folded the $20 bills and placed them in my wallet. My hands were steadier now. Something inside me had shifted. It wasn't anger yet, not fully. But it was the beginning of something sharper than fear. I looked at the dark window, my reflection faint against the glass. If Derek thought I would sit quietly and wait for him to fix things, he didn't know me as well as he believed. And that was the thought I carried with me as I prepared for what came next. The next morning, I woke with a heaviness in my chest that felt like it had settled there overnight. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that grocery store scanner flashing red, or Derek's message telling me he'd handle things. Handle. As if my life were a loose drawer he could organize however he wanted. I walked to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator again, hoping, ridiculously, that something might have changed. It hadn't. The same lonely carton of eggs, the same near-empty shelf. I pressed my palms to the cool metal door and let out a long breath. I couldn't avoid the pharmacy much longer. My blood pressure medication was running low. I'd been spacing out my doses to make the bottle last, something my doctor would be furious about if she knew. But without access to my account, I couldn't risk overdrawing whatever Derek was doing with the money. I didn't even know if the balance was positive or negative. My own financial life felt like a locked room I was standing outside of, around mid-morning. A soft knock came at my door. When I opened it, Lily stood there, my 10-year-old granddaughter, her backpack slung over one shoulder, a knitted hat crooked on her head. She must have been on her way to school. Vanessa's car idled on the street below. "Grandma, Daddy forgot my lunch at home," she said. "Can I have a snack?" Her voice was light, innocent, unaware of the storm inside me. I let her in quickly, not wanting Vanessa to see the state of my fridge. Lily took off her backpack and wandered toward the kitchen, then stopped when she saw how bare everything looked. Children notice things, even when they pretend not to. She turned to me slowly. "Are you out of food?" My throat tightened. "Just need to go shopping, sweetheart. I'll be fine." She nodded, but her small shoulders tensed. She reached for the apple, the wrinkled one I should have thrown out, and held it as if it were precious. "I'll eat this. It's okay." The sight cut through me. I walked over, gently took the apple from her hand, and kissed the top of her head. "No, honey. I'll pack something for you." I found a sleeve of crackers in the back of a drawer, sealed but old. I wrapped them carefully and tucked them into her backpack. She hugged me before leaving, her arms tight around my waist, the way she used to when she was little. "I miss you," she whispered. "I miss you too," I said, my voice catching. "Call me any time." As she ran back to the car, I stood at the doorway watching Vanessa glance up at my window before pulling away. Her expression was unreadable, but her lips were pressed tight. Whether she suspected something or simply didn't want to be involved, I couldn't tell, but it left me with a hollow feeling. When I walked back inside, the quiet felt suffocating. I wandered to the living room and sat on the edge of the sofa. My mind drifted back to a winter years ago when I'd been sick with the flu, burning up, shaking, barely able to stand. Derek had said he'd stop by after work, but the hours stretched late into the night, and he never came. Connie had been the one who found me, pale and sweating, and called the doctor on my behalf. She'd stayed until I could keep down a cup of broth. I had told myself back then that Derek was simply overwhelmed with work. I always found a reason to excuse him. Always. The truth was becoming harder to deny. Somewhere along the way, my son had stopped seeing me as a person who raised him and started seeing me as a responsibility he could manage or ignore, however it suited him. That realization landed like a dull blow. Around noon, Connie knocked again, this time with a small container of soup. "Leftovers," she said, though it was clearly freshly made. I invited her in, and we sat at the table while the steam warmed my face. She watched me carefully. "How bad is it, Lorraine?" I stared down at the spoon in my hand. "I don't know anymore. I can't see the account. I can't buy my medication. And Derek, he's not talking to me." Connie's jaw tightened. "This isn't just miscommunication. You need help. Real help." "I don't want to drag anyone into family issues." "This stopped being family issues when you couldn't buy groceries," she said. "There are resources. People who know what to do." I looked up at her, and for the first time, I didn't push her words away. "What kind of resources?" She reached into her jacket and unfolded a small flyer. It was from the Community Board, Free Financial Safety Workshop for Seniors, hosted by Andre Coleman. The name hit me with a shock of recognition so sudden it pulled me fully upright. Andre. I hadn't thought about him in years. I whispered his name aloud, the memory rising like something long buried. Connie tilted her head. "You know him?" "Yes," I said slowly. The image of a shivering boy outside the church, steps forming in my mind. A long time ago. And as the memory sharpened, an unexpected flicker of hope stirred in me. A door I thought was long closed had quietly opened. I held the flyer in my hand long after Connie left, running my thumb over the printed name as if it might vanish if I looked away. Andre Coleman, a boy I once found shivering outside the church 20 years ago, skin and bones under a thin jacket. Too proud to ask for help, but too cold to refuse it. I remembered buying him a hot chocolate and convincing him to come inside where the pastor could find him a blanket. I'd forgotten that memory for years, tucked it away with other small kindnesses that seemed insignificant at the time. But now, seeing his name here, tied to a workshop about financial safety for seniors, felt like something more than coincidence. The workshop was that afternoon in the community room beside the church. I wasn't sure I had the energy to attend, but the alternative was sitting alone in my apartment, waiting for Derek to remember I existed. So, I put on my warmest coat, tucked the flyer into my purse, and walked slowly toward the church, each step careful on the cracked sidewalk. The community room was modest, long folding tables, a whiteboard stained from years of use, and a tray of pastries clearly donated by someone with good intentions but limited baking skills. 10 or so older adults clustered in small groups, chatting about rising grocery prices and Medicare changes. I hovered near the doorway until I heard a familiar warm voice call out from the front. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Andre Coleman. Thank you for being here." I froze. The young man I remembered had grown into a confident, steady presence. His shoulders were broader, his clothes well-fitted in a way that spoke of hard-earned stability, but his eyes, the same deep-set, gentle eyes, were unmistakable. He began speaking about common scams, red flags to watch for, and the importance of keeping financial independence as long as possible. His voice carried a mixture of authority and empathy I couldn't stop listening to. When the workshop ended, people gathered around him with questions. I waited off to the side, unsure if I should approach him, unsure if he would even remember me. When there was finally a quiet moment, I stepped forward. "Andre?" My voice trembled. He turned, polite and professional at first, but as he looked at me more closely, something shifted in his expression. Recognition dawned slowly, like a sunrise breaking over his face. "Ms. Matthews," he said, disbelief softening into warmth. "Is it really you?" I nodded, suddenly emotional. Andre pulled me into a gentle hug, careful not to overwhelm. "I can't believe this. You're the reason I ever got off the streets. You helped me when no one else would." "I only did what anyone should," I whispered. "Not everyone does," he said with quiet conviction. When we sat down at one of the folding tables, I told him what had happened, how my card was declined, how Derek locked me out of the joint account, how I didn't even know the balance anymore. Each sentence felt like peeling back a layer I had kept hidden, and it stung to expose it. Andre listened without interruption, his posture gradually tightening, his jaw clenching in a way that betrayed his concern. "Lorraine," he said slowly, choosing his words, "this isn't a misunderstanding. This is control, and it's hurting you." I looked down at my hands. He's my son. I don't want to believe he'd do something intentionally cruel. "People don't have to mean harm to cause it," Andre replied, "but you deserve to feel safe, and you deserve access to your own money." A lump formed in my throat. I don't even know where to start. "You start," he said gently, "by letting someone help you this time." He asked me if I had any recent bank statements. I explained that everything had been online since Derek combined our finances. Andre tapped his fingers thoughtfully. "There's a lawyer I trust, someone who specializes in elder financial cases. She'll know what to do, and I'll go with you. If you want, you shouldn't face this alone." The idea of involving an attorney stirred a mix of relief and fear. Taking legal action against my own son felt unthinkable, but doing nothing felt even worse. I nodded slowly. Yes, I think I need help. Andre smiled, the same gentle smile I remembered offering a frightened young man so many years ago. Then that's what we'll do. He walked me to the church parking lot where crisp leaves rustled along the pavement. As he reached his car, he turned back one more time. There's a way through this, Lorraine. It's not easy, but it starts with facing the truth. I hugged my coat closer, the wind biting through the fabric. I'm scared. Courage doesn't mean you aren't, he said. It just means you keep going anyway. As he drove away, I stood beneath the fading afternoon light, the flyer still tucked in my purse. For the first time since that humiliating moment in the grocery store, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in weeks, a way forward, faint but real. And as I began the walk home, I wondered just how much my life was about to change. 2 days later, Andre drove me to attorney Maya Vargas's office, a modest building tucked between a dental clinic and a tax service. The waiting room smelled faintly of lemon polish and stacked files. I sat with my hands folded tightly in my lap, listening to the ticking of a wall clock that seemed louder than it should have been. When Maya greeted us, her handshake was firm, her expression calm in a way that steadied something inside me. She guided us into her office and listened as I explained everything: my lost access to the account, the declined card, the rising fear. She asked careful questions, taking notes with deliberate strokes. When she finished reviewing what little documentation I had, she leaned back in her chair. Lorraine, what you're describing fits the criteria for financial exploitation. You have a legal right to access your funds, and you have the right to separate your finances from your son's control. The words hit me with a mixture of grief and relief. I nodded, wiping at my eyes. What do I have to do? We start by gathering proof, Maya said. Then we file for a financial protection order. It doesn't accuse him of a crime. It simply restores control to you. I expected fear to rise, but instead, I felt a quiet surge of strength. I wasn't attacking my son. I was reclaiming myself. Within a week, Maya obtained the statements Derek had been managing. Seeing them was like uncovering a secret I already knew but hadn't wanted to face. There were charges for restaurants I'd never visited, plane tickets I hadn't known he bought, expensive items with no explanation. I stared at the pages, each line tightening something in my chest. Did he think I wouldn't notice? I whispered. Or did he just think I couldn't do anything about it? Neither answer made it hurt less. Maya placed a comforting hand on my forearm. This isn't about punishing him. It's about restoring what is yours. The hearing at the county courthouse came faster than I expected. The room was small, the judge stern but patient. Derek sat across from me, avoiding my eyes. Vanessa kept her gaze on her hands. When Derek spoke, he insisted he'd done everything to protect me, that I was getting older and making emotional decisions. His words cut more deeply than I imagined they could. When it was my turn, my voice trembled at first, but steadied as I described the day at the grocery store, the shame, the confusion, the emptiness in my fridge. I told the judge how it felt to be treated like a child who couldn't be trusted with her own life. The judge took a long moment before speaking. Mr. Matthews, whatever your intentions, you left your mother without access to basic necessities. That is unacceptable. I strongly advise you to resolve this cooperatively. Outside the courtroom, Derek finally met my eyes. For the first time in years, I saw uncertainty instead of confidence. Mom, I didn't think it would get this far. That was the problem, I said quietly. You didn't think of me at all. He agreed to return the funds he'd spent and remove his name from every account tied to mine. The paperwork was signed that afternoon. Weeks passed. My new account received my benefits directly. My fridge filled again. I began taking evening walks, letting the cold air remind me that I was still here, still capable. Lily visited often, her laughter warming my small apartment. Derek kept his distance, his apologies tentative but real. Forgiveness would take time. And for once, I wasn't rushing myself. One evening, as I watched the sunset from my window, I realized something simple and quiet. I felt safe again. And that, after everything, was enough.